We would all like some quick and simple ways to improve our health, but we're inundated with often conflicting advice. So, if you're going to try just one thing to improve your mental and physical well-being, what should it be? Maybe some green tea to boost your brain power, or doing a plank to lower your blood pressure. How about some small acts of kindness to benefit your immune system? I'm Dr Mosley, and this is Just One Thing, where each episode will explore one thing you can start doing today to improve your health or life in ways you might not expect. I'm in my kitchen making dinner, and I've just finished cooking some rice. I used to eat a lot of white rice, but that made my blood sugars shoot up, and that's really bad for my health. So, years ago, I made a swap, which meant that I could still enjoy rice and improve my heart health, as well as giving my gut microbiome a boost. I'm having brown rice instead of white, and to be honest, it tastes so much better. Now, in recent years, carbs or carbohydrates have become a bad guy, and there are some diets which severely restrict carbs, and therefore grains. But for most people, there's no need to severely restrict whole grains, as having them in your diet can make a big difference to your health. Whole grains are in things like whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, rolled oats, and even brown rice. Not only do whole grains contain more fibre than refined grains, they're also full of minerals and antioxidants that can lower your blood pressure, improve your blood sugar levels, and reduce your cholesterol. It could even help you live longer. So how about swapping out those refined grains and throwing in some whole ones instead? I'm going to chat with Compton, a clinical support worker for the NHS based in Newcastle, to see if adding more whole grains is just one thing he can fit into his diet. Hi, Compton.
Hi, Michael.
Hello there. So, how is your diet? Is it sort of white toast and white rice and white pasta and things like that?
It's predominantly white, I would say.
So, what about snacks?
I do snack a lot. Flapjacks, chocolate, definitely crisps.
Right. So, how's your health generally?
I think because I'm just finishing off my nursing degree, I'm not anywhere near as active as I should be. My mind's focused on the degree as opposed to focus on the healthy options. That's why I've had the weight gain, unfortunately. At least a stone and a little bit in the last few months. I'm just eating literally everything in sight.
Okay, well, I've got a challenge for you, which hopefully will mean that you're snacking less, eating less, and feeling less stressed. I'm not going to ask you to make major changes to how you cook or what you eat. It's really about swapping out all those refined grains like the instant oats, white bread, white pasta for more whole grains like rolled whole oats, wholemeal bread and wholemeal pasta. And for your snacks, instead of crisps, chocolate, sweets and cakes, I want you to go for wholemeal crackers, perhaps with some cheese. Do you think that's doable?
That's definitely doable, definitely.
Brilliant. So I want you to swap in 3 servings of whole grains a day. That's like half a cup of brown rice instead of the white rice, half a cup of wholemeal pasta, or perhaps a slice of wholemeal toast instead of white toast.
Not a problem at all. I'm looking forward to the challenge.
I've asked Compton to swap his usual refined grains for whole grains every day for the next week. We'll see how he gets on later. But what is it about whole grains that makes them so good for you? Whole grains are made up of 3 parts: the germ, or core of the grain, the bran, or outer shell, and the starchy endosperm. Refined grains, which is what most of us eat, have the germ and bran removed. I think that is a crying shame, because those are the parts of the grain which are packed with healthy fibres, antioxidants, polyphenols, and even protein and fat. So what are the benefits of eating whole grains? For a starter, they can help trim your waistline. A large review of 15 studies, including data from nearly 120,000 people, linked eating 3 servings of whole grains every day to a lower body mass index. That's probably because the fibre in whole grains makes you feel fuller by slowing down how quickly you digest food and potentially influencing gut hormones like cholecystokinin that makes you feel full. Eating whole grains can not only help shift belly fat, but doing so could also reduce your levels of chronic inflammation. In a study published in 2008, 50 adults with obesity were randomly assigned to eating either refined or whole grains for 12 weeks. By the end of those 3 months, the whole grain eaters had lost far more belly fat than the refined group. But, interestingly, they also saw a 38% decrease in an inflammatory marker called C-reactive protein. The scientists think losing all that belly fat meant they released fewer inflammatory compounds. That could explain why increased belly fat is a key driver of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So it makes sense that swapping to whole grains can be an effective way to reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes. A Danish study where they tracked people for 15 years found that people who consumed the most whole grains, at least 50 grams a day, had up to a 34% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who consumed the least. 50 grams is a bowl of porridge and a slice of rye bread, which I think is really achievable. And eating more whole grains can cut your risk of dying from heart disease by around 18%. But why are whole grains so good for your heart health? We'll speak to an expert about that in a moment. First, let's see how Compton is getting on.
After purchasing all the whole grains that I could muster, whole grain bread, whole grain rice and noodles, I'm having oats for breakfast, a whole grain sandwich for lunch, and either rice or whole grain noodles for tea. And I'm feeling quite good for now, to be honest. I think the sweet cravings have subsided. I'm slightly fuller for longer periods as well. I think the only downside is the time it takes to cook the rice and the noodles, but it's not too bad. I've also lost a couple of pounds, which is good. I'm pleased about that, and I'm feeling motivated, and I plan on continuing the challenge for the rest of the week.
It sounds like Compton is enjoying swapping in whole grains. We'll find out later if he's managed to stick with it. But now let's speak to Dr Caleigh Sawicki, a nutrition epidemiologist from Harvard Medical School in the US. She's recently done a study looking at the heart health benefits of whole grains. Hello there, Caleigh.
Hi, how are you?
Now, I know you did a study specifically looking at heart health and whole grains. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so we looked at data from a large cohort, which had over 3,000 people who were followed up for over 18 years. We wanted to look at people who are consuming more or less whole grains as part of their normal diet and see what effects that might have on measures of things like waist circumference, blood pressure, blood sugar, all these indicators of heart health. When we looked at people who were consuming the most whole grain compared to those who were consuming the least amount of whole grain, which was no whole grain or less than half a serving, people who were consuming more whole grain saw less increase in their blood pressure and blood sugar. They saw less increase in their waist circumference. It was about half an inch difference, which might seem very small, but over time that adds up.
What I like about this is you're not asking people to give up carbs or anything like that. You're simply asking them to switch. What is it about the whole grains that the refined carbs don't have?
Whole grains differ from refined grains in that they have a lot more fiber primarily, and also a whole bunch of other nutrients that are removed during the refining process when we get refined grains. So whole grains are higher in all kinds of things, fiber and important nutrients, and even antioxidants and polyphenols.
Now, what is it about the fibre? I'm assuming it's the fact that it's feeding the microbiome, the good bacteria in your gut.
Fiber can have a couple of different effects. Primarily, it can have satiating effects. So it can make you feel full, right? Because it kind of absorbs some water and gets a little bigger in your stomach. And it also moves through your digestive system more slowly. And this can make us feel fuller a little bit longer over time. And then eventually the fiber does make its way down to our gut microbiota.
And what is it in the whole grains that you think is helping control your blood sugar levels?
A big part of that is also due to the fiber and that slow digestion. Essentially, with more fiber, it takes a little bit longer for our bodies to digest the whole grain, and therefore we're absorbing the glucose, the sugar from these grains a little bit more slowly. So you have lower increases in the blood sugar.
Are any whole grains better than others?
I would say no, but I think it's great to get a variety of different whole grains because different whole grains do have different things in them. They have different types of fiber. They might have different levels of certain nutrients. So trying to get a mix is always good.
Now, what advice would you give people to increase their intake of whole grains?
The easiest thing is to, whatever refined grains you're eating, switch them out for a whole grain version. Instead of white bread, switch it out for a whole grain bread. Or instead of, refined pasta, whole grain pasta. Or maybe switching your breakfast cereal for whole oats. I think that's the simplest, most straightforward way to incorporate more whole grain. Try out some of these other grains that could maybe replace white rice as well, like quinoa or something like that, and have some fun with it.
And in terms of you go into the supermarket, is it fairly obvious when you pick up a food whether it contains whole grains or not?
The main thing you want to look at is the ingredients, and you should see, ideally the first ingredient should be whole grain wheat or whole wheat flour, something like that. That's going to indicate that most of the product is whole grain. In some products like breads and pastas might use a mix of whole grain and refined grain, but if it's the first ingredient, you're still getting a lot of that whole grain. And certainly if it says 100% whole grain, then that's even better. Oats are usually whole oats. You want to go for the rolled oats or steel cut oats, have more of the intact fiber.
Got it. And in terms of servings per day, how many would you recommend?
So generally, the most benefit comes from about 3 servings per day. And a serving is really a slice of bread or about half a cup of cooked oats or pasta or rice. So that would be the goal to start with.
Absolutely.
Another option is to also look at whole grain snacks. So people might not realize, but popcorn is actually a whole grain. And as long as you're consuming popcorn that's not totally covered in butter and sugar, it can be quite a healthy snack.
It really is such a simple swap, and it can lead to such big benefits. Now let's check in one more time with Compton to see if he's enjoyed his grainy week.
Hi, this is Compton with my final report. I've kept to having the 3 meals per day, making full use of whole grains. Overall, I've been really impressed because it does keep you fuller for longer. To be honest, I haven't really had any snacks of the week as well, which I feel is a very big positive. I've still got the sweets in the car, but I'm letting the kids have them. I'm feeling a bit more motivated at work as well, so it's keeping my mood a bit more elevated. I don't feel as stressed as I used to be, and both myself and my partner have noticed that I'm having a better night's sleep over the last week or so. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be using them moving forward without a shadow of a doubt.
It's escaping. I'm delighted to hear that Compton has become a whole grain convert, and I'm trying a whole grain I've never actually cooked before, and that, as you might gather, is popcorn. Now, I used to eat it when I went to the cinema, covered in salt and in sugar, but this is the first time I've tried to make it myself. Okay, that's done. Add a bit of salt, and here goes. It's quite crunchy, I have to say. I can almost taste that fibre going down and doing me good. And I guess that's what makes popcorn such a great snack. And if you want to find out more, check out our Snack Smartly episode on BBC Sounds. Now, I am definitely sticking to my whole grain diet, so why don't you give it a go as well? Your heart, your gut, and even your waistline might thank you for it.
That's it. It's just one thing you can do now, which really could benefit your body and life. If you want to hear more of the series, why not subscribe on BBC Sounds? On the next episode of Just One Thing, get an early night. How going to bed an hour earlier can boost your mood, cut your cravings, and improve your heart health.